Hi guys, welcome. If you're watching this video, you're probably about to start university and feeling a mix of either anxiety, fear, excitement, confusion, or even avoidance like I was. Most of all, you're probably like, what am I getting myself into? And so I'm here to answer all of those questions and hopefully give you some tips. Why not share my 5 years worth of learnings before I eventually become irrelevant? I'm gonna need y'all to lock in for this one. If you need a little Subway Surfers on the side, if you need to play this on 1.5, 2 times speed, I get it. Hopefully these tips are helpful. And I also actually asked some of my university peers what they would have recommended to a incoming university student on my Instagram story. And so if you're interested in that, stay till the end. Let's get started. When it comes to university, I think this is the perfect time to reinvent yourself. Likely you're coming into it being like, I'm gonna be a better version of myself, and you're gonna change things about yourself that maybe you were too embarrassed to do in high school. I think that's an absolutely great mindset to have going into it. I originally had a school uniform in high school, and so a lot of what I experimented with in university was fashion. I also came out of my shell a lot more in university, but I also want to caveat this with wherever you go, there you are. You bring yourself with you, and so when it comes to making these changes in yourself, you really do have to work at them. You can't just suddenly think, I am gonna have this really great friend group. You're gonna have to put yourself in those social situations in order to meet people. You can't really just romanticize it and expect it to happen. I want you to avoid waking up one day 2-3 months into university and being like, I am nothing like how I imagined. Not to say you have to change, but if it's something that you want to do, you're gonna have to work out those things. Go to orientation week. To me, it really felt like summer camp. You get to break the ice, meet familiar faces that you're going to have in your classes or your group projects, which is really helpful. And although these may not always be your best friends for the remainder of university, it's really nice to have those familiar faces and really get you out of your comfort zone. When you start university, there was definitely going to be an adjustment period, whether that be getting your first bad test score back or doing your first reading and realizing, oh my god, this is going to be so much more work than I thought it was going to be. And I think that that is totally normal. You will adjust to the additional workload. You will adjust to the way in which each professor grades and what they find important to put on tests, which way in which you should be studying for these tests. I wouldn't sell yourself short automatically and spiral. Give yourself a grace period to adjust and you'll be completely fine. When it comes to your workload, most of it in university is going to be readings and assignments. You actually don't have that many hours of classes per week. You might have lectures that are like 3 hours long, which sounds like a long time, for sure it is, but you'll get used to it. When it comes to readings, I would definitely say to learn which ones are essential for each professor. For some professors, you'll need to read the chapter because they'll test on the whole chapter, but in class they'll only go through a portion of it, versus other professors, they will rehash the entire chapter in class. And so if you've done the reading, you're kind of like, I've learned this already, what's the point? Definitely wait at least a week or two to buy the textbook based on whether you think you will need it or not. There are ways to get a textbook for free online in PDF form that I've heard of. You know, for legal reasons, I've never done that. Try to save your money when it comes to textbooks. My technique for readings was always taking notes on a laptop when reading through the textbook, and I would not write down word for word what was said in the textbook. I would make sure that I read the entire paragraph on the page, and then I would go back and write down only essential parts so that when you come around to then studying, you don't have like 10 pages of notes per chapter to read through. Also on readings, try not to fall behind on them. I've definitely fallen into that trap in first year. In one of my classes, I literally did none of the readings up until the midterm, and so I had to cram reading, I think like 6 chapters in a week to study for the midterm, and that was an awful experience. All I did was sleep and then study every single day at the library, and so I would say it's a slippery slope when it comes to assignments. Also make sure that you have some friendly faces in your classes that you can team up with for group projects that you know are going to be good group members. A lot of what you're going to be doing in university is group project. Make sure you have good groups, because if you don't, you're going to end up having to carry that one random person who like didn't do anything, and it's kind of common practice that you don't really tell the professor about it because you don't want to become like a narc. Yeah, don't be a bad group member, obviously. There are also so many resources that exist when it comes to studying that you don't hear about unless you're in the know, and so definitely make sure you're in the community with your program. Months into my program, I realized that there is a Google Drive that was being shared around of past PDFs, of textbooks, practice quizzes. Teachers tend to repeat a lot of things. They don't always reinvent the wheel. Some of the things that past students have, you also might go through. Having those having those resources with other students is going to be something really helpful. Don't skip your class, because it's a slippery slope. Really, you're paying to be there. If you're not going to the class, you're gonna have to make up the learning yourself later, which is also just more time spent. So it's better to go to your class, especially if it's a class that has participation marks, because part of participation marks is attendance. And if it's a mandatory course that you can't drop and the teacher is absolutely that bad, then go to a different prof's lectures. I know a lot of people that had done that before, but just make sure you don't miss anything vital that is happening in your section. You're going to be tested by your actual prof at the end of the day. Okay, I changed locations because I realized we probably all need something new to look at. So I'm starting to cut up some ingredients for dinner. Maybe now is the best time to go through my meal tips. If you're going to be cooking for yourself at university, make sure you learn how to cook before you get there. Because for me, I did not know how to cook, and then I got there and I didn't know how to cook chicken. Use some YouTube videos, ask your parents, ask a friend, because if you don't know, then you're gonna have a big learning curve and probably make a lot of bad meals. Like, that chicken is going to be dry. Otherwise, if you're on a meal plan, which most first-year students tend to be, try to go for the lowest meal plan, because you can always add more money later, and you don't want to run into the issue where you have to spend all of it at the end of the year because it doesn't roll over. Please make sure you eat some vegetables at least a few times a week, because I definitely fell into that hole where I was eating a lot of junk all week, and then I would come to a point where I felt so bad that I had to go get a salad and a smoothie once a week, because I was like, I need to detox my body. Meals on campus can be pretty expensive, so use your meal plan strategically. Make yourself breakfast in the morning, buy lunch and dinner, or if you buy a big portion of dinner, then save the other half to have for lunch the next day, because you don't want to run into the issue where you're running out of your meal plan half the year in. Oh my god, I'm crying. Who's cutting onions? I'm actually crying so bad. When it comes to choosing dorms also, please choose one that doesn't have a co-ed bathroom, only because guys tend to be disgusting and unhygienic. I won't go into further detail, but just trust me on that one. Make sure you also get off campus to explore the city. Because my campus wasn't downtown, it basically never made the effort to explore downtown, and so once I finally moved to the city permanently, I was like, you don't know anything about this city. Even though campus may feel like home, make sure you take some time to explore the city, learn how to use transit, and I'm sure you will have a lot more fun. Also, on social life, don't go home immediately after class. Try to stay on campus for as long as you can, go to the library, see friends, have lunch with them, because that's really going to be how you live the true university experience and make friends. For me, I made the mistake of just going home immediately after class and starting in my dorm room. And so I didn't really have a lot of those social experiences, even though it's homey. Or even if you're commuting to campus, try to stay on campus for a little while so that you can at least experience university, not get just like going to class and then going home. A lot of people that I know that are in university now will actually stay on campus the whole day. So they'll make it a little bit like a 9-to-5 job, where they stay on campus all day and get all of their work done. And so by the time they're done for the end of the day, they go home and they have really good work-life separation, because once they get home, they don't have any work to do. When it comes to making friends, I would also say that as opposed to what you'd think,
making friends isn't the hard part. A lot of friends, you might think, oh, we don't feel that close yet, and that's because you're just a school friend initially, and so you need to build out that friendship that you're seeing each other outside of school. I think there's something about like you can only become friends after spending a certain amount of hours together. Also, on that front, when it comes to dating, if you don't like the idea of dating apps or clubbing and things like that, you have the perfect opportunity to meet people in person when you're at university. I know a lot of people now that wish that they would have dated more in university, because now that they're outside of university, there's a lot less of that built-in community where you can meet new friends, meet new potential life partners. If you are wanting to date, this is the perfect opportunity to do so. Study abroad if you're able to make it work financially, or if it's part of your program. I could not trust this enough. Study abroad was one of my favorite experiences. It is really an experience like no other, because when else are you going to have the opportunity to go to a new country but have that support system of being a student, and so meeting other students that are also exchange students. You're not doing it alone. You're still paying your normal tuition that you would pay back home just living abroad, and so obviously that comes with the extra expenses, but I would say it's definitely 100% worth it, and you'll meet some really cool people too. Not to mention, you get to be there for like 4 months. When else are you going to be in Europe or in Asia for 4 months? The most you can probably do when you're a full-time employee is like 2 weeks, maybe a month if you're lucky. Stew is on the stove with the ingredients we cut. And then now, even though it is 8 p.m., I am craving a matcha. So we're going to make that as I go through the rest of the tips. When it comes to taking notes, my preferred method is always taking notes on a laptop when I'm in class. Make sure that you listen rather than just writing the whole time you're in class. And when your teacher mentions something that wasn't mentioned in the reading or on the slide, that's when you can annotate it in, because most of the time your professor is going to post the lecture notes anyways, and so don't waste your time writing it down kind of thing, because it's going to be in the slides that you can review later. When it comes to electives, I would also say that these can be really useful or really detrimental to your GPA. I know people that took astronomy, dance that they were interested in, but that were relatively easy, so that at the end of the day, it was a place where you could go and not have to work super hard for it, versus if you take a really hard philosophy class, right? You get a bad grading it, you're going to be kicking yourself later. You really didn't have to do that to yourself. I learned that the hard way, because in my first year, I actually took a course of film that I ended up getting a bad grade in, and then that dropped my whole GPA down. On the other hand, if you get a really good grade in your elective, and that counts equally towards your GPA as your other courses. When it comes to teachers, you don't get as much one-on-one time with them as you would in high school, and so make sure that you are making yourself known to the professor by either participating in class, talking to the professor after class, or even going to office hours, because having a good relationship with your professor will be beneficial. Maybe if you need an extension, then you can always go to them and they'll be like, oh, I know you're a good student, so I'll give it to you. Or if ever you need a recommendation letter or want to be a research assistant, a TA, you don't have to do it in like a fake kind of way, right? Like genuinely approach the professors that you are interested in learning more about. And it can also help when maybe you're between grades, right? Like maybe you are taking a test and you're between an E and a B plus, let's say. They're much more likely to bump you to the next grade if they know how hard you've been working. If you ever feel that you maybe don't agree with the grade that you got on an assignment or something, office hours and talk to your professor about it. I found that more times than not, they are much more willing than you'd think at reviewing how they graded it and bumping you up a few marks. There's no harm in trying. I also know I just talked about GPA a lot, and I want to say that GPA is definitely not as important as you'd think it would be. Of course, it's good to do well in school, but at the end of the day, unless you're becoming like a lawyer, an investment banker, a doctor, then your grades aren't really going to be something that is necessarily looked at when you're on to like get a job. I wouldn't worry too much about getting 4.0. If anything, I would say that you should invest a lot more time in being part of the university community through things like clubs or internships and things like that, because that is a lot more of a valuable experience when it comes to putting it on something like your resume when you're trying to get a full-time job. And at the end of the day, that's what we're in university for, right? When it comes to resumes as well, things like internships, a lot of the time companies aren't looking for first year or second year students for internships. It seems to be pretty rare, and so usually I'll end up working like a part-time job of some sort. I worked at water park for my first 2 summers while also doing unpaid internships part-time, so that at least I could get some valuable experience. Sorry, I need to focus. The froth is not frothing. Usually after those first 2 years, companies are going to be looking for 3rd or 4th years because they know then they can likely hire them back in a year. Get discouraged at not getting an internship in your 1st or 2nd year. Not all degrees need an internship. Personally, for mine, I did. So that was just, I don't know what I have to say about that. I would also say getting involved in clubs is a great way to learn about what the different types of careers are out there in your industry. Coming into university, I knew I wanted to go into marketing, but I didn't really know truthfully what marketing was in a way. Like, I didn't know all the different career paths that were available to me, and so I found this was a really great way to get to know that, meet new people as well. Another note is use your student status as much as possible. Me, I did a lot of internships because I wanted to understand where I wanted to go in my career without having to graduate and then take a full-time job and decide, oh, I don't like this, I need to stay here for a year or more and then move on to the next thing. Also, you can use your student status not only for things like internships, but also networking opportunities in a way. I know like networking sounds so cringe, but genuinely working professionals are very open to teaching you what their field is about. They want to give back because they know that they were equally as confused when they were in your position. It really isn't as fake as you'd think it would be. Anything, like if you just treat them like a genuine person, then it'll be totally fine, you know? Everyone in my university when I first started was aiming for a first year representative position, which is essentially like the only first year student role that's available on a school club. And to me, that sounded so scary. I was like, genuinely, how do you guys feel qualified for that? Because I'm just a baby, like I'm just a girl. How do you guys feel qualified for that? Because I don't. And I think that that was a really big misconception of mine, that people felt they were qualified for these things, because at the end of the day, nobody is more qualified than you, right? Like, we're all just high school students that are entering university for the first time. What's happening is that they are just doing it scared. They are doing the thing scared, and that is in and of itself a really big skill. You are equally as qualified as everyone else, and everyone else is scared, they're just not showing it. Don't self-project and don't fall into the trap of imposter syndrome in a way. It's never too late to start. When I ended my first year, I didn't have any first year rep position. I was working a summer job at a water park, and I was like, other people know what they're doing and I don't know what I'm doing. But by the end of my university career, that is completely on its head. When it comes to seeing other people having had a head start, it is never too late to catch up. There are so many resources available to you. Having seen it from both sides of the coin, now having been experienced, it is just because I did things even though I was scared, even though I didn't feel qualified, because you get into those rooms and you realize you're actually more qualified than you thought you were. And that's a thing for women as well, is we always have more imposter syndrome than men. So, you know, we can do this. First step, let's see how it is. You're good. Oh, let me froth the milk. The last thing I'll say before I go into the advice I was given on Instagram, what to pack and what not to pack when moving into a dorm. Things that I think you should bring that you might not think to bring are a mattress topper, because the beds are so uncomfortable. Tupperware, dressy clothes, because you never know when you're gonna need them. Cutlery and dishes, even if you have a meal plan, they'll come in handy. A rain jacket and an umbrella. Hold an allergy medication, because you will inevitably get sick at least once. So any of your prescription medication, or at least like change your pharmacy to a pharmacy nearby the campus so you can get that stuff. Mittens or a hat for the winter, and a laundry basket. Things that I would say to leave are clothing that you think you might wear, because realistically you're never gonna wear it. And also bringing way too much stationery. You literally just use your laptop most of the time. The only time you're going to be using a pencil is like when you're taking a test or doing a class activity, when they sometimes give a handout out, but for the most part you really don't need a lot of stationery. Okay, let's get to the Instagram.
Thank you to everyone who submitted something on Instagram. I also really appreciate it. There was quite a few responses. First thing was, don't wait for what's next all the time. And it's very similar to the advice here of life doesn't stop when you want to take a break. You never finish working for the day, week, semester. You just mix stuff in. And I think this really has to do with don't delay fun while you're in university. It's a lot of work, and so you're gonna have to learn to juggle your priorities and really build in self-care practices so that you don't, one, get burnt out, and two, so that you have a memorable experience. Networking makes life during and after university much easier. Unfortunately, I would say yes, it's kind of a sucky thing that a degree is not enough sometimes, and so I would say that it is easier, not always because you gain a connection into a company that you want to work at, but because I think it teaches you a skill set of being able to talk to strangers and figuring out what career you want. Look at the big picture instead of freaking out when tests, etc. don't go as planned. I think I went over something similar earlier in the video. GPA matters, but not as much as you think. Make memories. Totally agree. Like I said earlier, cherish not having so many responsibilities. When you're in university, you have only like 3 hours classes in a day, and so you have a lot of time to build out your day in whatever way that you want to. That is something I definitely miss when it comes to having a 9 to 5 now, where you have to be working for basically most of the day, and then in the winter especially, by the time you get out for the day, it's dark outside already. Cherish the time that you have, or you have summers off, right? That's not something you're gonna get again. Being real with yourself about being a morning or night owl and scheduling your classes accordingly. Everything in uni you could learn yourself from a textbook or the internet. What sets the experience apart is the community, so take advantage of it. Yes, absolutely, because you're never going to be in a university environment, and I think that's why people always say like university is the best time of your life, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. Like, I love adulthood now too, but I would say that it's nice because you have that pre-built-in community where everyone is part of the same courses, right? Working towards one same goal, and that's not really something you get again in the same way in any area of your life. So that is everything. I hope this was helpful to you. I wish I would have known these things when I was starting university. Actually, my sister is starting university, so this video is kind of for you too, kind of in the good luck Charlie kind of way. So good luck, Emily. I hope this was helpful, and let me know in the comments or message me on Instagram or something if you have any other questions. I'm sure myself or anyone else would be happy to respond. Good luck, have fun, and I'll see you in the next one.